Hello everyone and welcome to our final webinar of 2019. The purpose of this webinar is to introduce the new iLim wrist. Today I will be providing a brief overview of the iLim range, looking at the features and benefits of the iLim, as well as some of the technical aspects, control methods for accessing grips, and then introduce the new iLim wrist, including how to set up using Biosim. If you have any questions throughout the session, please send them through to the chat section and I will cover them at the conclusion of this webinar. In the iLim range, we have the iLim Access, which is the more basic version of the iLim, featuring manual thumb rotation only. The iLim Ultra has a powered thumb, which the user has the ability to control themselves, and because of this, there are more grip options available. The iLim Quantum has a powered thumb along with additional options to get into grips, including gesture control. Although all the iLim hands in the range are compatible with the new iLim wrist, the iLim Quantum and the iLim wrist provide optimal function when paired together. Before I go into any more detail about the iLim range, I just want to give you a brief introduction into the iLim wrist. The iLim wrist is our new powered wrist rotator that is controlled via two digital electrodes, which detect specific muscle actions from the user's residual limb. The wrist has the ability to provide two main features depending on which version of hand it is fitted with. When fitted with an iLim Quantum, the wrist will have what we call simultaneous rotation upon grip selection, meaning the wrist will automatically and simultaneously rotate to a predefined position for that grip. For all the iLim hands, it also features direct rotation, giving the user the opportunity to control the rotation of the wrist directly. I just wanted to briefly cover the features and functions of the iLim range before we delve more into the wrist. The fingers on all the hands have their own individual motors and are all multi-articulating. You can stall the fingers, which means as a finger comes into contact with an object, the motor will sense resistance and will stop moving. That stall ability is what gives the hand its compliant grip and will conform to the shape of whatever it is holding, providing even pressure around the object. The thumb on all the iLim hands can be manually rotated, allowing the user to position it optimally for the task they are looking to achieve. The Ultra and Quantum hands feature a powered thumb and will automatically move into the optimal position for a specific grip. The hand can also be programmed so that the user can control the thumb position via a muscle trigger or gesture control. Proportional control means the stronger the muscle contraction, the faster the hand will move. Likewise, a weaker muscle signal will cause the hand to move more slowly, which is useful for picking up delicate objects. Vary grip and pulsing mean that when the user maintains a closed signal on an object, the fingers will ratchet down and create a firmer grip, which can be useful for dressing or opening various packages and Ziploc bags. The difference between vary grip and pulsing relates to the battery. Vary grip will draw less from the battery than the pulsing feature of the access hand. Auto grasp prevents the inadvertent release of an object. When a short, unintentional open signal is detected, the hand will reclose, giving the confidence and security to the user. In addition to the basic functions just mentioned, the hands also feature a number of automated grips to help with daily tasks. There are various control methods to get into these different automatic grips, and this will depend on which iLim hand you have. I will go into a bit more detail in the next few slides on these control methods. So who is a suitable candidate for the iLim? The level of loss should be through the wrist or more proximal, and this includes transhumeral and shoulder disarticulation. The hands are intended for low to moderate impact use only, and the thing that makes multi-articulating technology great is it provides a lot of dexterity for the user, but this can also make it susceptible to high impact and high torque forces that you want to try to avoid. You want the user to be motivated and have realistic expectations of what the hand can do, and we really emphasize the importance of working with the therapist to take the user through the stage training program that we have. Studies have shown that early therapy nearly doubles the rate of daily use, so it is really important to include a therapist where possible. Here is just a summary of the differences between the hands that are available with the Access, Ultra and Quantum. 12 grips are available with the Access, as well as manual thumb rotation only. As a reminder, vary grip versus pulsing relates to the battery. Vary grip will draw less current from the battery, but still provide that extra grip force when maintaining a closed signal. The Access only has the ability to change grips via app control and muscle triggers. Auto grasp is a feature that applies when engaging in tasks such as putting away the dishes. For example, users may be concerned about dropping a glass if they were to accidentally fire an open signal whilst moving. Auto grasp assists by detecting inadvertent open signals and reclosing the hand when this short, unintentional signal is detected, allowing more confidence when performing these tasks. The Ultra has all the features of the Access, plus a powered thumb, which enables a few more grip options, taking it to 18. It also has VeriGrip instead of pulsing for that extra grip strength. And finally, the Quantum Hand has all the features of the Ultra, plus 2 additional options to access grips, which include gesture control and grip chips. 24 grips are available, along with the ability to make 12 custom grips, taking the total number of grips to 36. So just a bit more detail on each of the 4 methods to access grips. Firstly, we have app control. All the grips can be accessed through Biosim for the clinician or My iLim for the user. And this is possible on any iOS device, such as an iPad, iPhone, iPod Touch, and you can even have the ability to access 4 grip favorites through the Apple Watch. Another method of accessing grips is muscle control or triggers. This method can be hard to learn and does take more time, but with the Access and Ultra versions, this is the only other way to change grips automatically without using the app. The hold open, co-contraction, double and triple impulse muscle triggers can be programmed to enter a grip, and to come out of a grip, the user just needs to maintain an open signal to fully open the hand. This is the same method used to exit a grip no matter how it is accessed. The iLim Quantum has a really unique way of getting into different grips with simple gestures. By moving the arm forward, backward, left or right. Each direction is pre-programmed with a specific grip and can be tailored to the user. There is no need for additional muscle learning, and the initiation of gesture control can be programmed to either a hold open signal or co-contraction. The arm must be still and in a horizontal position parallel to the ground when firing the initiation signal. This is a feature to prevent gesture control from working in any unwanted positions. So to access gesture control, the user needs to hold their arm in the horizontal position and fire their initiation signal. As you can see in the video, the index finger will twitch when it detects the signal. Then the user just needs to move into the direction desired for that grip. You can also see on the screenshot that each direction has a grip programmed, and any grip can be easily programmed for any direction. An open signal is maintained to exit the grip before you are able to transition into a different grip. You don't need a large motion to trigger it, and the hold open signal is commonly used as people find it the easiest to learn. However, you can switch this over to co-contraction if preferred. Another way to access grips with the Quantum is proximity control, commonly known as grip chips. These are small Bluetooth devices that can be individually programmed with a grip. These are useful to have around the house or at work for grips associated with specific tasks that are less frequently used. The hand will change into a grip by coming within range, which is about 15 centimeters or less. You can also use the tapping feature to enter the grip programmed into the chip. These videos show examples of grip chips being used. In the first video, the grip chip has been positioned on the inside of the kitchen cupboard and programmed with a 2-finger trigger grip used for a spray bottle, as demonstrated here. The second video shows the tapping feature. By double tapping a programmed grip chip, the user is able to quickly access the assigned grip without the need to move the hand over the chip. Another thing to consider with the iLim hands is the option of titanium digits. Titanium digits increase the maximum carry load of the hands by around 50%, and also improves the protection of the motors from impact forces. Titanium is available for small, medium and large sizes, but not extra small. For the Ultra and Access hands, you will have the ability to upgrade at a later date if the option wasn't initially ordered. And from 2020, the iLim Quantum hand will come standard with titanium digits. As mentioned earlier, training is an important aspect to the user success of using the iLim. On our website, we have a link to the interactive training module as shown here. This is a staged training program with step-by-step guides to help with obtaining the best possible results for the iLim user. There is also an iDigits version of this training module, and the iLim wrist component has recently been added as highlighted here in the yellow box. I'm now going to go through the iLim wrist in more detail, providing a brief introduction, who it is suitable for, control methods and options, the features and benefits, and I will also cover the setup with Biosim and some technical details. The iLim wrist is our new powered wrist rotator that is controlled via 2 digital electrodes, which detect specific muscle actions from the user's residual limb. The 2 main features of the wrist include simultaneous rotation upon grip selection, and this works in conjunction with the iLim Quantum. When the user selects a grip while holding their arm in a horizontal position, which is the same position as gesture control, the wrist will rotate into a predefined position for that specific grip. The other feature is direct rotation, where the user can directly control the rotation of the wrist using one of 3 control methods. Smart control is a type of pattern recognition to directly control the wrist, which makes controlling the rotation more intuitive for the user. And there are also the conventional options of high-low and co-contraction to utilize direct wrist control as well. This video will give you a quick introduction to the iLim wrist and how it works. As you can see here, the 2 digital electrode contacts connected to the microprocessor unit of the electrodes. And when gesture control is initiated, the hand will go into the set grip, and at the same time the wrist simultaneously rotates, providing optimal positioning and function for the user. Claudia will now use gesture control to transition into a different grip to pick up the juice bottle. Then by using smart control, she can directly rotate the wrist to pour her juice. And I will go into greater detail about smart control later in the webinar. At this stage, the iLim wrist is only suitable for users with transradial level of absence. The user does need to have 2 viable control sites in order to utilize the wrist, and both new and existing users make suitable candidates. In terms of contraindications, the wrist is not suitable for single site users or if there is a more proximal level of absence. The iLim wrist does have one of the shortest build lengths on the market at 56 mm. However, this length has to be taken into consideration when fitting longer transradials. Now, focusing more on the control methods, as mentioned before, we have simultaneous rotation and direct rotation. With simultaneous rotation, this is only available with the iLim Quantum hands. Direct rotation control is available when used in conjunction with all the iLim hands. I'm now going to go into more detail on the control methods. Firstly, we have simultaneous wrist rotation with grip selection. When a grip is entered using any iLim Quantum control method, whether that be gesture, app, muscle or proximity, and whilst the arm is in the horizontal position, the wrist will automatically and simultaneously rotate to the optimal position. This method does not require any muscle input from the user to rotate the wrist other than the signal to initiate a grip. Secondly, we have direct wrist rotation from the user's muscle actions. Smart control identifies intuitive muscle actions from the user during the initial setup process in Biosim, allowing calibration of the prosthesis to the individual user. The user activates the muscle action related to the movement which they want to perform, allowing direct access to the hand and wrist movements. This will be palm up or palm down and open or close. Alternative direct rotational control methods include high-low and co-contraction, and these offer the availability of conventional control methods that can also be used for the iLim wrist. This table shows the predefined position of rotation for the main grip types. The variants of each of these grip types listed here also have these predefined positions. If the predefined position of rotation does not match with the user's requirements, direct wrist rotation or manual wrist rotation can be used to adjust. When creating a custom MyGrip, the wrist rotation is fully configurable as well. Simultaneous rotation can be turned on or off using the Biosim or My iLim apps. Simultaneous wrist rotation upon grip selection will be applied when the prosthesis is held horizontally and the grip is activated using one of the control options of the iLim Quantum: gesture, app, muscle or proximity. When the grip is selected, the wrist will automatically and simultaneously rotate to the optimum position for that grip. In this example, Nathan is using gesture control to access the different grips. The second feature of the wrist is direct rotation. Direct rotation allows the rotation of the wrist to be initiated by the same two control sites as used to control the hand, but without changing grips. The iLim wrist features three control options for direct wrist rotation: smart control, high-low, and co-contraction. The best control strategy is selected based on the user's needs, capabilities, and preferences. Smart control identifies intuitive muscle actions from the user during the initial setup process. It allows the calibration of rest, close, open, palm up and palm down signals. The user will have direct control of the wrist and hand, utilizing pattern recognition with only two digital electrodes. Listed on the right side of the image, the recorder signals are shown on the graph. For rest, shown by the black circles; close, which are shown by the blue X's; open, shown by the red diamonds; palm down, shown by the yellow triangles; and palm up, shown by the grey squares. A successful recording is automatically applied to the iLim wrist and iLim hand after the recording process has been completed. In this video, Nathan is able to demonstrate smart control, and by mimicking movements of his sound side, he can show the movements and the corresponding control of the wrist. In the practice screen shown here, the user is able to see which movement is being performed when each control bar is highlighted. This is useful for users to fine-tune their control when away from the clinic. In addition to smart control, high-low control can be used to operate the iLim wrist and iLim hand. When using high-low, a high or fast and strong signal operates the wrist, and a low or slow and gentle signal operates the hand. The direction open or close and palm up or palm down will depend on which electrode the signal is from. In this video, Nathan's sound side hand mimics the signals that are being sent inside the socket. Looking at the iPad screen, both high and low signals are visible, and the result is shown in the movement of the iLim wrist and hand. The last control method is co-contraction. Using this method, a fast contraction signal of both muscles at the same time switches control between the hand and the wrist, so the open-close movement of the hand can be alternated with the rotation of the wrist. In this video, the sound side hand also mimics the muscle action of the residual limb. The signals are visible on the iPad screen within Biosim. The co-contraction signal is used to switch to wrist control, after which rotation can be controlled by the open and close signals. If using co-contraction to switch between hand and wrist control, then co-contraction will no longer be available to access any grips or gesture control. I would like to take a moment to summarise the features and benefits of the iLim wrist. The first feature we will discuss is simultaneous wrist rotation upon grip selection. When the iLim wrist is used in conjunction with the iLim Quantum, the wrist can rotate to the optimum position for that selected grip. This avoids the need to position the hand and wrist components individually. Because of this simultaneous movement, the user can benefit from a faster accommodation to grips, as well as being free to use the sound side hand, which could lead to improved mobility when performing tasks that require both hands. The second feature, direct wrist rotation, has three different control options: smart control, high-low, and co-contraction. When using smart control, pattern recognition based on the individual's muscle actions will be obtained, recorded, and installed onto the wrist by using the Biosim app. Separate signals for rest, close, open, palm down, and palm up are recorded to control both the hand and the wrist, increasing the mobility of the user. High-low control can also be used for automatic signal recognition to control either the wrist or hand. High, strong signals will be used to control the wrist, and low, gentle signals will be used to control the hand. With this automatic detection of the signals, the hand and wrist can be controlled without having to switch between them. This provides a smoother transition between the wrist and the hand for the user, which can lead to improvements in daily tasks. Co-contraction is beneficial for users that would like to have the distinct separation of wrist and hand movements, or that are unable to use smart control or high-low. This conventional distinction between the hand and wrist signals could be an alternative as well as a preferred way of controlling the wrist. Overall, with all these available options, the wrist can be tailored to the individual as features can be selected matching the user's ability. Previous myoelectric users can also benefit because their acquired control strategies can still be used. Speed boost is another option available with the iLim wrist. This allows the rotation speed of the wrist to be configured, so it can match the individual user's needs. By default, speed boost is set on minimum. This setting can be easily accessed via Biosim, along with the option to control the speed of the iLim hand as well. The Biosim app should be used on an iPad to set up the iLim wrist. With their clinician, the user can continue to use the Biosim app to practice and finesse their technique prior to using the prosthesis in functional activities. For the user, the My iLim app is available, as is true for the iLim hand. But when used with the iLim wrist, it includes a practice mode to allow the user to continue practice smart control away from the clinic. I will now run through how to set up the iLim wrist using Biosim. Setting up the iLim wrist and the iLim quantum hand is performed by using the Biosim app on an iPad. The digital electrodes are positioned on the residual limb in the optimum position identified through myotesting using the virtual limb. Assessment should be done individually when starting to work with the iLim wrist, as the ideal position for the electrodes could be the same or different than before. To set up for smart control, the user activates muscle actions which feel most intuitive to them for the required movements. During the recording process, the user will activate muscle actions as instructed by the software. These actions will be intuitive movements for open, close, palm up and palm down. These movements, including rest, will be recorded and applied automatically to the iLim wrist and quantum hand. When both the wrist and the hand are switched on, they will be displayed separately in the Biosim app when you are using an Access or an Ultra hand, as shown in the picture on the right. When using a quantum hand, both the hand and the wrist will be represented by the serial number of the wrist as shown on the left side. The gain adjustment screen is where the signal strength will be adjusted to gain the maximum control of the wrist and hand. As the electrodes are digital, you expect to see more signal on the graph at rest when compared to regular myotesting using the virtual limb. As its starting point, you'll aim to adjust the gains for open and close so that the user can hit the 70 to 80 range on the graph when firing a 50 to 60% strength contraction. This allows a stronger signal to better record palm up and palm down, as the signals for these movements tend to be much weaker. You can always come back and make any adjustments to the gains if, for example, the recording obtained wasn't optimal for the user's control. To show an example of adjusting the gains, in this video the gains start out turned down to the lowest settings for both open and close. You can see the signal strength is minimal, especially for close. This will not provide enough signal strength for control, especially for palm up and palm down movements. Then the gains are turned all the way up to the highest settings, and you can see how Nathan doesn't get good separation, and the signals are topping out on the graph. This will make controlling the wrist and hand very difficult. Next, when the gains are turned evenly down to 50% strength for each signal, you can see that the open is still too strong and the two signals are uneven in strength. Remember, you are looking for even strength around the 70 to 80 range on the graph. Finally, the gains are adjusted to the optimal settings for both open and close, giving Nathan good control and separation, and this is what you are looking for. It is always worth spending the time at this stage fine-tuning the signal strength to make sure the user is able to obtain optimal control. The next stage in the setup process is evaluate. Here you can spend time with the user practicing the required movements before moving on to the recording. You can see here in this example screenshot that each movement is allocated a different symbol and colour, and it is important to ensure separation of the signals for optimum function. Recordings can be erased and retried unlimited amount of times, but it is important to erase all the recordings prior to moving on to the recording screen. In this example, I'm giving Nathan an instruction on what I would like to record. And when he is ready, he will execute that movement whilst I press one of the movement tabs on the right of the screen to record it onto the graph. It is important to spend time to make sure the user is confident with each movement and to practice the rest signal with anterior and medial loads applied, as you'll be asked to do so in the recordings. Applying these loads are important because it acts to mimic the loads when carrying objects, making sure the user can rest whilst doing so. It is always a good idea to have the user standing with their arms parallel and to use the sound side, if possible, to mimic the action they are trying to perform, as Nathan is demonstrating here. This strategy will help the user visualize and perform the required movements. Palm up and palm down movements should be intuitive and not too complicated to perform. If the user struggles to achieve separation initially, they can try adding basic movements on top of the movement. For example, with palm up, they can imagine flexing the little finger in addition to the movement, and with palm down, thumb adduction can help when added in addition to the movement. The next stage of the setup is the recording. Each movement will be recorded individually and the on-screen prompts will guide the user through the process. The on-screen graph can be hidden or displayed depending on the preference of the user and clinician. Sometimes having the on-screen visual can help the user with more consistent recordings. If the user makes a mistake or you're not happy with the recording, the last recorded movement can be reset and re-recorded. Each movement is recorded 5 times and the on-screen prompts will direct the user to change positions or add load to the movements. When the circular progress bar hits go, the user must contract and hold until it has passed the red section. Contracting too early or too late will result in a compromised recording of that movement. After an individual movement is recorded 5 times, the user has the ability to rest and prepare for the next one. The clinician has to initiate movement recordings by pressing the tabs on the right side of the screen. Once a recording has been completed successfully, the data will be transferred to the wrist and the hand, and if the recording is unsuccessful, it will be prompted to re-record. After the recordings are complete, you will move on to the rest threshold adjustment. The aim here is to use the gain adjustment sliders to capture all of the rest signals, which are the black circles. This helps separate functional movement from rest. If by capturing all the rest movements, you need to also capture the closest non-rest movement, like palm up, it will turn everything captured inside the arc to rest. This helps eliminate the unwanted movement in rest when load is added to the prosthesis. For example, when carrying a bag. The video here shows an example of adjusting the rest threshold arc by using the sliding gain adjusters of the open and close. The final stage in the setup process is the practice page. In this section, each bar represents a movement and will light up when the movement is being performed by the user. The user can practice signal separation with good visual feedback in various positions. This video shows Nathan activating each movement, and when doing so, the corresponding bar for that movement lights up. This provides good visual feedback for the user and can be practiced away from the clinic using the My iLim app. Nathan is demonstrating practicing the control of the movements in different positions here. It is important to make sure the user has control in all different positions. If the user is unable to utilize Smart Control initially or is already proficient in another control method, as mentioned earlier, there is ability to switch to either high-low or co-contraction. To switch control strategies to either high-low or co-contraction, you will go into the settings in Biosim and under Control Strategies, select any of the dual site control options. Then under My iLim Wrist options, you can select either high-low or co-contraction. As a reminder, when training someone to use the ILM wrist and ILM hand, we really emphasise this staged training approach. Stage 1 consists of the basics you want your user to master before they go on to more advanced options like changing grips, simultaneous rotation, and direct rotation, which will be covered in stages 2 and 3. Like with the ILM hand, this would be done over a period of time where the therapist and user work closely together. Stage 1 of the training module focuses on the hand functions open and close, without any wrist involvement at all. At this initial training stage, for example, when training a new user, the wrist can be turned off in the app to allow the user to concentrate on the basic functions of the hand and to avoid accidental activation of the wrist. Manual wrist and thumb rotation can still be utilised in this stage to help with positioning. Like the video shows in this stage, we're looking for control in multiple planes of motion without sending signals to the wrist. In the second stage, the training focuses on changing grips by using gesture control or app control. Simultaneous wrist rotation is incorporated when entering grips in this stage. The arm must be held in a horizontal position for gesture control and simultaneous rotation to work. Using app control to change grips does not require a horizontal position, but if you are wanting simultaneous rotation of the wrist, the horizontal position will be required. When the wrist isn't in a horizontal position, the user can enter a grip without the wrist rotating simultaneously. In the third and last training stage, direct rotational control is added. In this stage, more complex tasks would be trained, like active rotation with objects or pre-positioning outside of grips. The goal for the user is to be able to combine simultaneous and direct rotational control within tasks. In this stage, the training also focuses on changing grips by using muscle control triggers or grip chips. I will now just take you through some of the technical details for the ILM wrist. When looking at the complete component system, we have the ILM hand, the ILM wrist, the digital electrode microprocessor unit, the two compact digital electrode contacts, the expansion ring which locks the wrist into the socket, and I'll go into more detail shortly, the magnetic charge port, and the batteries. As mentioned in the user profile, an allowance of 56 millimeters is required for the ILM wrist. The wrist adds 160 grams to the prosthesis, and the device is fitted within the outer socket or frame of the prosthesis. This is achieved by an expansion ring on the outside of the wrist, shown in the picture on the left. The ring expands to the outer socket or frame when the three central screws shown in the picture in the middle are evenly tightened one by one. The screws need to be torqued to 1 Newton meter, and this pushes the expansion ring against the inner surface of the prosthesis to secure the ILM wrist in position. Because of this special expansion ring, the wrist can only be fitted when the included dummy is used during fabrication. Therefore, retrofitting the ILM wrist to an existing socket manufactured for a standard wrist is not possible. The picture on the right shows the back of the wrist with the connection ports for the electrodes and the battery. The serial number of the device can also be found here. The ILM hand will be connected to the ILM wrist with the built-in Quick Wrist Disconnect, or QWD. Also, as mentioned previously, controlling the ILM wrist requires the included digital electrodes. These electrodes will be used to control both the wrist and the hand. The digital electrodes are also available in compact and remote versions. And the ILM wrist only accepts these digital electrodes because of the connection to the wrist, so traditional analog electrodes cannot be used. The advantage of using digital electrodes is they extract the more complex information required to enable accurate identification of these additional muscle movements: open, close, palm up, palm down, and rest. A microprocessor unit allows processing of the EMG signal before it enters the wrist and hand, resulting in an overall quicker processing and response of the signal. 6 electrode cables in 2 groups extend from the electrode unit. The middle cable in each group is the ground cable. The electrode cables are color-coded for ease of identification. Group 1 has a green color with a white ground and is channel 1 for open. Group 2 has a blue color with a black ground and is channel 2 for close. And just a side note, the digital electrodes must be plugged in prior to powering on the prosthesis for them to accurately detect. The magnetic charging port allows the battery to be charged, power to be switched on or off, and the remaining battery level to be monitored all in one place. The battery will charge when the magnetic charger is attached to the charger port on the prosthesis. When charging is in progress, a red light is displayed. When the battery is fully charged, a green light is displayed. The charging time is around 90 minutes to 3 hours, depending on the selected battery capacity and power supply. A car charger is also available. The batteries for the iLim wrist do not have to be fully drained before the charging, and overcharging is not possible. To turn the device on or off, press and hold the black button on the charge port for 1 second and release. When turned on, the display will briefly illuminate brightly and then dim, showing the remaining battery level. When turned off, the display will again illuminate brightly and then switch itself off. The battery charge level is represented by the bars or fingers on the charge port. Each finger represents 20% charge, and when the battery level reaches 5%, the red low battery warning light will light up. The light will shine for 3 minutes and then the device will turn off. An emergency reserve of power remains available to turn on and release the device from an object, ensuring the safety of the user. Before we finish up, just a quick note on compatibility with the iLim hands. When we talk about compatibility, we mean the ability to simultaneously rotate upon grip selection. This feature is only possible with Quantum hands. If a hand is not compatible, you can still directly rotate the wrist using any of the control methods, high-low, co-contract, or smart control. iLim Quantum hands built since February 2018 are compatible, and iLim Quantum hands built since November 2016 can be upgraded to be made compatible. The hands to be upgraded will need to be sent to us and will incur a cost. You can contact the customer service team for a quote if this is required. We will continue to offer upper extremity courses throughout 2020, and this will now include the iLim wrist. We are also offering trials of the wrist units, and the clinical team can be available to help with setup and programming when required. Thank you everyone for your attention today, and we look forward to working with you in 2020. If you have any questions, please send them through to the chat section now.